On the wedding day, James' childhood sweetheart snatched the glasses of nuptial wine from my hands. While clinging to James and insisting on drinking with him, she smiled at me and said, "Daphne, you've already stolen James from me. All I want now is to have a glass of nuptial wine with him. That's not too much to ask, is it?" I turned to look at James, but he averted my gaze. He smiled and glinted at her and said, "You're like a sister to me. It's perfectly normal for us to have a drink together. There's no need to ask her." The childhood sweetheart giggled cockathiously and hooked her arm through his. James then leaned down, and the two of them drank the nuptial wine in an extremely intimate manner. The crowd began to murmur. I stood there, completely disappointed in James. Noticing the change in my expression, James' childhood sweetheart cowered in fear and hid in his arms. "Daphne, you're not going to hit me out of anger, are you?" James immediately frowned and looked at me, warning in a low voice. "It's a joyous occasion today. Don't be unreasonable." As he spoke, he walked over, picked up the wedding ring, and tried to put it on my finger. I took a step back and said calmly, "You've already drunk the nuptial wine. The ones who should exchange wedding rings are you two." My retreat was so obvious that James' hand holding the wedding ring froze in mudra, and his face darkened quickly because of my words. He stared at me intently with his dark eyes, his gaze full of dissatisfaction. "Daphne, what do you mean?" I looked at him calmly and said, "It means nothing. I'm just telling you that I've vacated the position of the bride. You two can continue with the ceremony." As soon as I finished speaking, James' face turned even uglier. He looked at me with an irritated and puzzled expression. "Do you really have to cause a scene today? All these people are waiting. If you don't cooperate, what will they think of me and Mia? After saying this on his own, James took a step forward and forcefully grabbed my arm. He warned me in a low voice again, "Daphne, put away your dirty thoughts. Mia and I grew up together since we were children. I've always regarded her as a sister. Mia might have gone a bit too far today, but it's not a big deal after all. You're going to be her sister-in-law in the future. Don't you even have the slightest bit of tolerance?" James grabbed me so hard that I clenched my fists in pain. I looked up at him, seeing the reprimand in his eyes as if I was the one being unreasonable. I was so angry that my chest hurt. Sister. If Mia didn't have feelings for James, why would she pester him to drink the nuptial wine on such an important occasion? And as for James, if he really regarded Mia as a sister, how could he let her act so recklessly? The two of them were so intimate in public without caring about lay dignity, making me the subject of gossip and losing all my face. It's already a mercy that I didn't slap them on the spot. Why should I cooperate? I gritted my teeth and looked at the man I had loved for 3 years in front of me. I suppressed the anger in my heart and said, "Let go of me." James felt my struggle, and the last bit of patience in his eyes vanished. He frowned unhappily and looked at me. "Haven't I already explained it? What else are you arguing about? Do you really want to make a situation so out of control that it can't be fixed?" Mia came over and pretended to dissuade me. "Daphne, stop arguing with James. He got up early in the morning to prepare the things for the wedding. He really cares about you. Actually, it's all my fault. I didn't expect you to care so much about the little playful interaction between me and James. I apologize to you. Please don't put James in a difficult position." Mia was used to playing the victim. At this moment, with red eyes as she spoke, she looked as if she had suffered a great deal of grievance. James was already dissatisfied with me. Now, seeing Mia's apologetic look, a look of pity for her instantly appeared in his eyes. "Mia, you don't have to apologize to her. It's her own fault for being so suspicious and seeing everything as dirty. It has nothing to do with you." After he finished speaking, he looked at me with a disappointed expression and an angry voice. "Daphne, I can explain to you if you misunderstand me, but you can't misunderstand Mia. She's an innocent girl. Have you ever thought about how her reputation would be damaged if you talk about her like that? You'd better apologize to her right away, or there's no point in having this wedding." He was disappointed and angry, but I was even more disappointed and angry than he was. I suddenly shook off his hand, took a step back holding the hem of my dress, and met his gaze. Looking at James, who was so certain that I would bow my head and apologize, my voice turned cold. You don't need to threaten me. There's no need to have this wedding in the first place. At first, I agreed to the marriage alliance with James' family because I thought James was good-looking and there were no other women around him. Who would have thought that as soon as we got engaged last year, James' childhood sweetheart, who had been studying abroad, came back. Some of my sisters advised me to be wary, but I thought that since they had known each other for so many years, if they had feelings for each other, they would have been together long ago. James was very attentive. He never forgot my birthday or our anniversaries. He would also prepare small surprises for me from time to time. If he had to go on a business trip or meet someone, he would keep me informed all the time. He gave me a sense of security, and I gave him my trust. But I never expected that I was so wrong. Ever since Mia came back, James' attitude towards me has changed. We had planned to go on a date, but he agreed to it at first and then disappeared. I couldn't get in touch with him for a whole day and night. I was so worried about his safety that I stayed up all night and even called the police. When he came back, he only said to me, Mia was in a bad mood yesterday, so I accompanied her to the beach to relax. There was no apology, and no words to comfort my feelings. I was so angry that I had a big argument with him and told him that even if he regarded me as a sister, he shouldn't have stayed with her, a woman, alone for a whole day and night. James had always been very gentle with me, but that time, he became extremely angry and shouted at me when he heard my words. I've already said that Mia is like a sister to me. Can't you stop thinking of others as so dirty? After he finished speaking, he slammed the door and left. Later, he even sent me a screenshot of the record showing that he had booked 2 rooms. After I realized that I had misunderstood him, I took the initiative to apologize to him, and we made up. But disappointment is something that, once it appears, will keep coming back. James was no longer as attentive to me as he used to be. The small surprises were gone, the updates about his whereabouts were gone, and he even took a long time to reply to my messages. When I asked, he would say that he was busy with something. If I asked again, it would always be related to Mia, without exception. I will never forget the time when I was in the hospital after a car accident and called James. He said impatiently, Daphne, since when had you become like those other women? Mia sprained her ankle. I'm just here to check on her. Is there any need for you to lie? At that moment, my heart hurt so much that it almost went numb. I cried a lot and was so heartbroken that I even thought about calling off the engagement. But when I thought about the upcoming wedding and all the good things James had done for me before, I still felt unwilling. James was my first love, and I wanted to give him one last chance. But I gave him a chance, yet he drank the nuptial wine with Mia in public, trampled on my self-esteem and dignity, and told me to be tolerant. I no longer had the slightest bit of unwillingness left. I took a deep breath, looked up at James, who was standing there in shock, and said word by word, James, I want to call off the engagement with you. James came to his senses, and a rare look of panic appeared on his face. Just as he was about to say something, Mia, who had been quiet all this time, knelt down in front of me crying. Daphne, you can't call off the engagement with James. You know that James' family needs the help of Daphne's family now. Aren't you forcing him like this? I know you're unhappy because of me. I apologize to you. Don't worry, I will never appear in front of James again. She was crying so pitifully that she almost fainted. James, who had looked a bit flustered just now, immediately looked at me with contempt and anger in his eyes. He didn't hesitate to reach out and pull me out from the ground, then turned around and scolded me, Daphne, have you had enough of this nonsense? Mia's family has suddenly suffered a great change, and she's already so pitiful. Why do you have to pick on her? Don't think that just because your Daphne family is rich, you're so great. Even if my James family doesn't cooperate with your Daphne family, we can still get through this difficult time. If you push me any further, I still won't abandon Mia. I thought I was already completely disappointed in James, but now I realized that I could be even more disappointed. We had been together for 3 years, and I thought he understood my character. But in James' eyes, I was actually someone who would threaten him just to get rid of Mia. I sneered and said, "Believe it or not, it's up to you. Anyway, I will call off the engagement with you. From now on, even if you take care of Mia for the rest of your life, it has nothing to do with me." I picked up the hem of my dress and turned to walk out. James caught up with me in a few steps and grabbed me. "Daphne, stop making a scene. The ceremony isn't over yet." Just as I didn't know how to get rid of him, I met the resentful gaze of Mia behind him. Mia glared at me fiercely, then deliberately pushed the table beside her to make a noise. The next second, she pretended to faint on the ground. James heard the sound and turned around to look. His pupils shrank sharply, and his expression instantly turned tense. Even the hand holding my arm seemed to loosen slightly. If I had seen James like this before, I'm afraid I would have been so heartbroken that I couldn't sleep all night. But now, I don't care anymore. "General Manager James, your childhood sweetheart has fainted. Why don't you go and take care of her quickly?" When James heard my words, he was stunned and looked at me in surprise. But with Mia fainting, the situation was urgent, and he didn't have time to think much. The next second, he still let go of my hand and rushed over eagerly to pick up Mia. I wasn't surprised at all by his choice. When James left with Mia in his arms, ignoring the eyes of everyone around, I also picked up the hem of my dress and left. But what I didn't expect was that as soon as I got in the car, James' mother called me. I answered the phone, and immediately James' mother's displeased voice came from the other end. "Daphne, it's not that your aunt, want to scold you. James is being naive, but why are you joining in this nonsense too? Today is such a joyous occasion, and so many important people are here. If both of you leave, our 2 families will be the laughingstock. Look, you should go back right now and stabilize the situation first. I'll call James right away and ask him to go back." James' mother arranged things for me in a superior tone, and I couldn't help but laugh. When James' family came to propose the marriage alliance, James' mother always said that she would treat me like her own daughter in the future. In fact, she did treat me well at first. But after she saw that I had fallen deeply in love with James, she started to change. She cared less and less about me and rarely showed concern for me anymore. Last time, after I had a car accident and quarreled with James, I chose to swallow my anger. Since then, she seemed to be even more certain that I couldn't do without her son. She often sent me messages telling me that a woman should be magnanimous. I had been annoyed by her completely different attitudes towards me for a long time. Since I was already going to separate from James, there was naturally no need for me to endure it anymore. I smiled and replied to her, "Aunt, James drank the nuptial wine intimately with Mia in public. Even if people laugh, it's your James' family that will be laughed at. I've already decided to break up with James. Instead of calling me, you'd better think about how to get through the difficulties your family is facing." "You?" James' mother was extremely shocked by my words, but as soon as she opened her mouth, I hung up the phone. After hanging up the phone, I noticed that James had sent me a message. "I'll come back as soon as I send Mia to the hospital." Probably seeing that I didn't reply, he sent another message less than 2 minutes after sending this one. "Daphne, don't think too much. I really only regard Mia as a sister." James hadn't sent such an explanation for a long time. Ever since I started quarreling with him because of Mia, every time we talked about his relationship with Mia, he would be very angry and say that I had a dirty mind. I didn't know why he suddenly started sending messages to explain again, but I was too lazy to think about it. I had spent so much time on him, and now that we were finally going to separate, there was no need to torture myself by thinking so much. When I got back to my house, after thinking about it, I still sent a message to my parents who had gone on a trip out of anger. At first, when I met James, my parents were quite satisfied with his appearance and ability. It was only after we got engaged that James and Mia, who had returned from abroad, were always hanging out together, and my parents started to have opinions about him. They advised me to break up with James as soon as possible, but at that time, we had already been together for 2 years. 2 years of relationship couldn't be ended just like that. I forgave him again and again, and my parents were extremely disappointed in me. I didn't tell them that this wedding was the last chance I gave to James. They couldn't stand James and were angry with me because of that, so they just went on a trip. After I sent them a message to explain the current situation, my parents were very happy. They said they would come back right away and told me never to forgive James again. Of course I wouldn't forgive him again. At this moment, looking at the happy and cautious words my parents sent to comfort me on my phone, I suddenly felt very regretful. How could I have let my parents down again and again because of such a person? I should have thought clearly and separated from him earlier. After changing out of the annoying wedding dress, my phone suddenly rang. I turned my head and took a look, and found that it was James calling. Without even thinking about it, I blocked him directly. After making up my mind to separate from him, I suddenly found James very annoying. The person who didn't reply to messages or answer calls after our quarrels in the past year actually remembered to call me on his own initiative now. To prevent James from sending me messages to bother me, after thinking about it, I simply found all his contact information and blocked him. But what I didn't expect was that since James couldn't get in touch with me, he actually came to my door directly. I thought it was my parents who had come back, so I went to open the door. But when I opened the door, I found it was James. His face was extremely ugly, and his eyes were filled with anger. Before I could react and close the door, he stepped inside. "Daphne, I really underestimated you. You actually went to complain to my mother. I just sent Mia to the hospital, and before I even saw the doctor, my mother forced me to come and find you. When did you become so selfish?" After James said this angrily, he suddenly let out a cold laugh. "Aren't you just mad at me for not finishing the ceremony with you today? Come on, let's go and have the wedding again now and get the marriage certificate by the way. But I'm putting it bluntly. After you get the status of Mrs. James, you must change your suspicious and jealous nature and never cause trouble for me again." After he finished speaking, he grabbed my arm and tried to pull me away. I was so shocked by his words that I was slow to react. The more I looked at him, the more I felt that I had been blind before. I had actually spent 3 years on such a person. That feeling of regret stuck in my chest, and I gritted my teeth and tried to shake off his hand. "James, let go of me. I've already decided to call off the engagement with you." But after hearing Mia's words, James was certain that I was threatening him with the matter of calling off the engagement. With a dark face he not only didn't let go but held my hand even more tightly. "Daphne, there should be a limit to your temper tantrums. If you keep making trouble because of Mia, it will only make me think that you are too selfish." I was so angry at his words that my chest hurt. Seeing that I couldn't communicate with him, I looked around, picked up the small vase on the shoe cabinet, and smashed it hard on his head. I used all my strength for this blow. James' pupils shrank sharply, and he finally let go of my arm. "Daphne, you." There was blood on James' forehead from the blow. He looked at me in shock and disbelief. I moved my wrist, which was painful and numb from his grip, and looked him in the eye. There was not a trace of regret in my heart. For someone like him who couldn't communicate normally, I should have resorted to force. Holding the small vase in my hand, I said calmly, "James, I really want to break up with you. I can't stand having a two-timing person beside me in the future. So I don't want you anymore. I wish you and me a lifetime of happiness together. Don't come to bother me again in the future." Looking at my calm and unfamiliar gaze, James finally realized that I wasn't joking with him. While he couldn't believe it, he instinctively tried to hold me back. "Daphne, are you still minding what happened at the wedding? I can explain. Mia hasn't been in good health these years." Every time his explanation was related to Mia. After such a long time, even though he wasn't tired of saying it, I was tired of hearing it. I interrupted him in annoyance. "I've said it. I have nothing to do with you anymore. You don't need to tell me these things in the future." With all the spare time, you'd better go to the hospital and take care of your childhood sweetheart. In the past, when I stopped James from taking care of Mia, he would turn around and ask me why I couldn't be as magnanimous as other women. He even said that my suspicious and jealous look made him feel more and more suffocated when he was with me. But now that I didn't want him anymore and told him to take care of the person he couldn't let go of, he was even angrier. With red eyes, James looked at me furiously. Daphne, what's wrong with you? If you really mind the matter of Mia so much, we can discuss it properly. Can you stop speaking in such a sarcastic way? I was a bit confused. It was he who always confidently told me that it was only natural for an older brother to take care of his younger sister. If I was dissatisfied or angry, I was just overthinking and not trusting his character. Why was it that now, when I calmly stated the facts, it seemed sarcastic to him? Looking at James in front of me, whose eyes were filled with extreme anger, I felt that I couldn't communicate with him. Forget it. You can think whatever you want. As long as you don't come to bother me again in the future. After saying that, I closed the door behind me. Outside the door, James knocked on the door hard in frustration and shouted, Daphne, come out and make things clear. We've been together for 3 years. I don't believe you can be so heartless. I frowned in annoyance and warned him impatiently. James, if you don't leave, I'll call the police. When James heard what I said, he froze in place. Call the police? Daphne's voice sounded full of impatience. For a moment he couldn't even tell whether she was really angry or if she was truly going to break up with him. This situation seemed to be different from the previous ones. James knew in his heart that Daphne was often uncomfortable because he was getting too close to Mia. Daphne often quarreled with him about Mia, and he had seen Daphne with red eyes, holding back her tears more than once. He felt guilty and actually thought about keeping a distance from Mia, but he couldn't do it. Mia's family went bankrupt, and now she was all alone with no one to rely on. Since they grew up together, he should help her. Not only him, but Daphne, as Mia's future sister-in-law, should also learn to be magnanimous and tolerant. James thought that he couldn't always indulge Daphne's little temper tantrums. So when he advised Daphne to be more magnanimous but Daphne didn't listen, he simply put on a cold face. He had been in a relationship with Daphne for 3 years. He knew how much Daphne loved him, and he also knew that with the wedding approaching, Daphne wouldn't give up on him just because of a quarrel. Therefore, even though he knew that it was too much for Mia to pester him to drink the nuptial wine at the wedding, he still cooperated with Mia to teach Daphne a lesson. James thought that as long as Daphne was more magnanimous and turned a blind eye to the fact that he often helped Mia, he would definitely treat her better in the future. The only thing he didn't expect was that Daphne seemed to be really angry this time. James frowned tightly, and the stinging pain on his forehead was extremely distinct. He opened his mouth, wanting to coax Daphne in a low voice and make her forgive him. But for nearly a year, it had always been Daphne chasing after him to make up, and he had gotten used to this way. It suddenly seemed difficult for him to lower his head and coax someone now. James stood there, not knowing what to do when a call came in. He was about to hang up irritably, when he saw that the call was from Mia. His expression changed slightly, and he immediately answered it. The next second, Mia's weak voice came from the other end of the phone. James, I'm feeling so bad. Can you come to the hospital and see me? James instinctively wanted to agree, but thinking of the angry Daphne, somehow the words on his lips couldn't come out. James, why aren't you speaking? Does your sister-in-law not want you to come? You can give the phone to your sister-in-law and let me talk to her. I won't take up too much of your time. Mia's voice was as pitiful as ever. James had never thought anything of it before, but now it suddenly felt a bit strange to him. He suppressed the strange feeling in his heart and said calmly, Nandana's sister-in-law didn't stop me from going. Don't think too much. I'll be there soon. After hanging up the phone, James thought about it and finally said coldly to the door, Daphne, marriage is a serious matter and can't be messed around with. You're angry right now, and I don't blame you. Just calm down by yourself. Bring your documents tomorrow morning, and I'll come to pick you up to register for marriage. James really couldn't say the words of apology, but he thought that even if Daphne was still angry, she should calm down after he said this much. He was worried about Mia and still had to go and check on her. As for Daphne, after they got married, he would compensate her with a better wedding. Behind the door, hearing James's gentle voice when talking to Mia on the phone and then his cold voice when notifying me, I frowned in disgust. Couldn't James understand what I was saying? I had already broken up with him, yet he still thought about getting the marriage certificate with me tomorrow. He clearly couldn't let go of his childhood sweetheart who he grew up with, but he still wanted to keep me by his side. I had never seen such a disgusting person. I was really blinded by his appearance before. I called the community security guards and told them not to let James in the future. After doing this, I suddenly received several text messages. Looking at the familiar phone number, my eyes turned cold. I reached out and clicked on it, wanting to see what Mia had sent this time. As soon as I clicked on it, I saw a photo. The person in the photo was all too familiar to me. It was James's sleeping profile. Daphne, when James accompanied me to the beach to relax before, he should have told you that we booked 2 rooms. But it happened to thunder that night. James was worried about me, so he slept in my room. This matter has been weighing on my mind for a long time. After thinking it over, I still think I should tell you. But don't worry, we didn't do anything. It's my fault. Please don't be angry with James. After reading these messages, my stomach churned, and I was so disgusted that I almost vomited. Mia always liked to do things like this, which seemed like an apology but were actually a provocation. When Mia was in severe pain during her period, James brought her brown sugar water and heat packs. She took the initiative to tell me and then apologized. When she sprained her ankle and asked James to carry her to the hospital in a princess hold, she felt so guilty afterwards that she apologized to me. She apologized every time and every time I was so angry that I couldn't sleep. At that time, I questioned James with the messages, asking him whether he could keep a distance from Mia. But after looking at the messages, he frowned and said, Mia took the initiative to apologize to you because she was afraid that you would be uncomfortable if you found out about it someday. Can you stop thinking so much? I had a big argument with James out of anger. The next day, Mia sent me a message saying that her original intention was to avoid misunderstandings, and she asked me not to think too much and not to take out my anger on James. I endured her again and again, feeling disgusted, because apart from caring about Mia, James really didn't do anything beyond the boundaries of principle. I thought Mia was just unrequited in love, and I thought that she would give up when she realized there was no chance in the future. I didn't expect that in the end, it was me who was played for a fool with my one-sided love. Just thinking about the 2 of them sharing the same bed while James said I had a dirty mind and made me apologize, I felt so disgusted. Men, I should say that this pair of a scumbag and a slut made me want to vomit. I gritted my teeth and directly took screenshots of the messages and the photo that Mia sent. Then I logged into WeChat and posted them on my moments, with the caption, broken up. My friends in the circle all knew that my wedding with James didn't go through successfully. Many people were asking me if it was because of Mia, but I hadn't sorted out my feelings yet and didn't know how to reply. Now it was fine. I didn't need to explain one by one. Everyone could understand by looking at my moments. Less than a minute after I posted it on Moments, a friend commented, "Damn, the strong tea-like smell is almost overflowing from the screen. So shameless. Good for you for breaking up. I hope the scumbag and the slut are locked together for life. They really should be locked together. People like them should be together for a lifetime and not go and harm others anymore." Mia probably didn't expect that I would suddenly post the messages she sent on Moments. She called me like crazy. After I blocked her, she tried to add me on WeChat. I blocked her every attempt. Finally, James somehow borrowed a phone and called me. As soon as I answered, he said angrily, "Daphne, delete the Moments post right away. Do you know how much of an impact this will have on Mia?" There was a faint sound of Mia sobbing in the background. I felt speechless. Didn't you say that she sent the messages to apologize to avoid misunderstandings? Why are you reacting so strongly now that I let everyone see her apology messages? This is not the same thing. James was about to say something more, but I didn't want to listen anymore and directly hung up the phone and blocked him. When another strange number called, I simply turned on the mute. James couldn't get her on the phone, and his frown deepened more and more. If he had been confident about soothing Daphne before, now he had no idea what to do at all. Daphne's attitude was too cold. He was flustered and uneasy at this moment. Mia was lying in the hospital bed, crying with red eyes and looking at James from time to time. But this time, James didn't coax her as he used to. James was upset and, after running out of patience, turned around and scolded her, "Can you stop crying? If it weren't for you sending those messages to Daphne, she wouldn't be taking her anger out on me." James was really angry. He told Mia not to talk too much because he was afraid that Daphne would misunderstand their relationship. At that time he was indeed worried about Mia, but they really didn't do anything. Now that Mia had sent those messages, no matter how much he explained, it would definitely be hard to make things clear. Mia was startled by him and looked at him in shock and grievance. After all, they had known each other for so long and James had never lost his temper with her before. "James, don't be angry." James didn't have the time to listen to her nonsense. All he could think about now was how to soothe Daphne. Ignoring Mia's attempts to hold him back, he turned around and walked out of the ward. James drove to the downstairs of Daphne's place, wanting to go in and find her as he did in the afternoon, but he was stopped by the security guards. They said that Daphne had told them not to let him in. James was shocked and even more panicked in his heart. No matter how fierce their quarrels were before, Daphne had never treated him like this. It seemed that she was really angry this time. James was blocked outside. He couldn't get through to Daphne's phone, but he still didn't give up. He asked the security guards to call Daphne and tell her that he was waiting for her outside. The security guards glanced at him and didn't move. James clenched his fists in anger. Feeling embarrassed and about to leave, his mother's car stopped beside him. He turned his head and saw his mother getting out of the car with a cold face, and Mia, dressed in a hospital gown, being dragged out of the car by the bodyguards. Mia was crying with tears in her eyes and shouting at him, "James, save me." James frowned and looked at his mother. Although he was angry with Mia, he didn't want to see her treated like this. Just as he was about to speak, his mother walked over and slapped Mia across the face. "All because of you, you bitch. You've caused my son and daughter-in-law to grow apart, and the company's stock price has been falling continuously." When James heard the latter part of his mother's words, his face instantly changed. He didn't care about Mia anymore and grabbed his mother's arm, eagerly asking, "Mom, what's going on with the company? Didn't it stabilize in the past 2 days?" His mother turned to look at him, her eyes full of disappointment, saying, "I told you before that no matter how much you worry about Mia, you can't make Daphne too angry. But you just didn't listen. Now, it's a mess. The two of Daphne's parents haven't even come back yet, and they've already announced the cancellation of the engagement. If you don't soothe Daphne today, the company will be finished." James' face gradually turned pale. The next second, he turned around and forced the security guard to call Daphne. I finally decided to come down. Although this entire villa area was my family's property, it was already so late. It was better to deal with it early and let them leave, so as not to disturb the other property owners. James' mother saw me first. My smile immediately appeared on her face, as enthusiastic as when she brought James to my home to introduce us to each other. "Daphne, regarding what happened today, Auntie is here to give you an explanation. You should know James' character. He's not the type to act recklessly. It's all this bitch Mia who wants to marry into the James family, and has staged all these things herself. I brought her to you and have already taught her a lesson. After today, I'll send her far away so that she can never bother you two again." At the end of her words, there was a hint of harshness in James' mother's tone. Mia's eyes widened in fear, and she kept shaking her head and crying for help from James. Anyone could see that James' mother intended to send me far away to make her suffer, but James, who had always doted on her, didn't react at all. I stared fixedly at James. When he saw me looking at him, he thought I was asking if he had any objections. He immediately shook his head and forced a smile at me, saying, "Daphne, don't worry. I have no objections. Recently Mia has indeed done a lot of excessive things. Sending her away is the right thing to do." Hearing her son's words, James' mother gave him a satisfied look and nodded in agreement. "After sending her away, Auntie will start preparing for the wedding right away. Auntie promises you that this time, no one will disrupt the wedding, and it will definitely go smoothly." Hearing this, I suddenly couldn't help laughing. Then, I looked at James, who was waiting for my reply with an expectant look, mockingly. "James, you really disappoint me completely." James' expression panicked when he heard my words. He looked at me nervously and said, "What's wrong, Daphne? Is there something else you're not satisfied with?" I looked at him calmly and instead of answering, I asked, "Aren't you going to turn around and look at your childhood sweetheart? You're the only one here who cares about her. Aren't you really going to say something to help her?" When Mia heard my words, she glared at me fiercely and then looked at James expectantly. James stiffened all over when he was asked by me. Probably thinking that I was still angry, he avoided Mia's gaze and said affirmatively, "She has improper intentions and covets things that don't belong to her. I have nothing to help her with." So, James actually always knew that Mia liked him. He was just pretending to be confused and enjoying the ambiguity. My eyes turned cold, and that feeling of nausea welled up again. Probably because my gaze was too cold, James felt uneasy and tried to justify himself, saying, "I've always regarded Mia as my sister and have told her to keep a distance. But she didn't listen. Every time she had something, she would come to me. I couldn't just ignore her." I watched as Mia's gaze towards James changed from expectation to disappointment and now to hatred. "You're lying!" Mia shouted. The next second, James' mother had someone cover her mouth. James' mother forced a smile and told me, "Daphne, don't listen to her nonsense. People like her can say any kind of lie." After talking to them for so long, I was really fed up with their hypocrisy. I directly said to James, "If you had protected me like you did before today, I might have thought a little better of you." The smile on James' face couldn't be maintained anymore. "Daphne, what do you mean by that?" I sneered and said, "It means that I look down on you, and you don't need to come to me anymore in the future." The person who had made me suffer for the sake of his childhood sweetheart before could now abandon his childhood sweetheart to keep me. Instead of being touched, I felt relieved. I was glad that I had seen through James earlier, and hadn't really married him. If I had really been with such a person, not only my family property, but I'm afraid I couldn't even guarantee my personal safety. I didn't bother to look at him anymore and turned around to leave. Behind me, James shouted heart-wrenchingly, "Daphne, I did all this for you. How can you look down on me?" James' mother was so scared that she turned around and told him to shut up, and then forced a smile and shouted, "Daphne, you can be angry, but the engagement can't be cancelled casually. Just give Auntie some face and forgive James one more time." I was extremely annoyed and turned to the security guards, saying, "If they don't leave, call the police to drive them away." The James group was in chaos. If James and his mother were taken away by the police at this time, it would still be them who would be affected. James' mother knew this very well. With an ugly expression on her face, she called on the reluctant James and left. I thought I could finally have some peace, but the next day, I received the flowers that James had left in the security room. There was a card inserted in the flowers, which was written by James himself. "Daphne, I wrapped these flowers myself. After all these years of our relationship, I still want to continue walking with you." I felt so disgusted, and my parents, who had rushed back, were also extremely disgusted when they saw this. My mother said in disgust, asking someone to throw the flowers away, "It's still important to match in social status. We shouldn't have helped them in the first place. I agreed with my mother's words. At that time, I thought James was a nice person and wanted to give him a hand. If he was grateful, he would definitely treat me well in the future. Who knew that James not only was ungrateful, but also had a bad nature? My father beside me snorted coldly and said, "That kid has the leisure to send flowers. He's still living too comfortably. I'll find something for him to do right away." My father had been unhappy with the fact that James always made me feel wrong for a long time. He whispered a few words to his assistant and asked the assistant to go and do it immediately. I smiled and didn't say anything, waiting for James to be in a state of anxiety. It turned out that my father was indeed my father. In the following days, James and his mother were busy running around for the company's affairs and didn't have the time to bother me at all. Every day, I went out with my mother to go shopping and relax. When I was free, I heard her say that James had gone to see my father once, but my father directly had him thrown out. I just felt a sense of relief in my heart and cursed that he deserved it. A few more days passed, and I heard that James' mother took James to humbly seek investments every day, trying to save the James group. But people in the circle more or less knew about the matter between James and me. No one was willing to invest in an ungrateful person. James and his mother encountered difficulties everywhere, and they were even photographed arguing on the street. I would check their latest news on time every day. Their embarrassment was the spiritual compensation for the past 3 years of my suffering. The only thing I didn't expect was that when the James family needed help the most, Mia ran away with the family's gold and jewelry. James and his mother searched for her like crazy but couldn't find her anywhere. The company's capital chain had problems, and the remaining money they had couldn't fill the gap at all. They could only apply for bankruptcy. On the day when the James family's assets were being liquidated due to bankruptcy, my parents and I got on the plane, planning to go on a good trip and relax for a while.